Well, hello folks, you're with Edward here again. Being the 3rd of April 2025. I have a request, a little bit further video on the M60. Talk to you a little bit more about this and about the other two weapons here, the 40 millimeter Bofors and the 90 millimeter assault gun behind the building here. We'll start here with the M60. Talked a little bit about this, and we had 2 battalions of these on my post in West Germany. They had just received them. They were M60 Alpha 3 models, upgraded from the A1s. The A1s had the xenon lights, the searchlights that were mounted here over the top of the barrels. I think some of the 2s may have had those, but the ones, or the 3s, they removed them. We're looking here, of course, we talked about the track pads and how once in a while they would throw these. You had to make sure that they were really tightened down well. I've seen them thrown. I've had to put them on the M109s. M109 has a single track pad. Of course, these tanks are weighing a lot more than a M109 howitzer. They have very wide tracks and so forth. The rubber wheels right here, these are road wheels. They ride on the rubber part of the tracks, internal rubber part of the tracks. You can see how these are end connectors. When you throw a track or you break a track, okay, you have to repair it. You have to put it back together again. And so these end connectors have to come off, okay, inside and outside the track, okay, and then you pound those off. There's the bolts that you take and loosen and remove them, and then the tracks will separate. You use big breaker bars and spreader bars and things like that. And when you throw these tracks, generally we'd see them in the field. It would be in big deep mud areas or in the middle of the winter where it was really, really hard to get in here and work on them. So they had to bring in a big M88 tank recovery vehicle. It's like a tow truck for a tank, and have to recover the tanks. A real mess. You can see the torsion arms down here. These are give it the suspension. This is the suspension. These move up and down as the tank rolls along the terrain. Now back here is a rear engine vehicle. Right here, this is the drive sprocket. You can see how the teeth of the sprocket mesh right up here at the end of the end connectors, both inside and out. If you ever wanted to take out a tank, destroy one, and you didn't have quite the weapon to pierce the heavy armor, right there is where you really want to hit. If you can hit them right here in the drives, she stops, and the tank is then just a stationary artillery piece at that point. Which is a lot to say because there's a lot going on. This has a 105 rifled main gun, 50 caliber M85 machine guns. The M60 A1s, I should say, the M60 A1s had a Browning 50 cal, but then when they went to the Israeli turret, commander's turret there, they went to the, I think it was a Merrimont product, the M85, much smaller body, like a shoebox with a barrel sticking out of it, the M85s. I talked to a couple commanders who loved them and a couple who just hated them, but everybody liked the Browning 50s. We have right here, of course, the blisters on either side, top of the turret right up here. These are the lasers, and the gunner will laze the target and come back into the computer, the range and so forth, and he'll put that in to the system and then aim the cannon and fire it. Right here is the gunner's sight. On the other side is the port for the coaxial machine gun right there, a 30 caliber. In the A3s that we had on our post, they used the M240 or the British Mag 58, but now they're of course known as the M240. We were using the M60 machine guns in the infantry and artillery, but the 240 is now used in place of the 60. So it's all over the place. There's the other laser. There's also antenna that are not here on this device right now, on this device on this tank. And there's also a little weather station that would tell barometric pressure, and I think a couple other things that would go into the gunner's computer to help with a solution to the firing solution. So everything, wind, temperature, everything would take into consideration, and away they go. Okay, I'll be right back. Another thing that we looked at here the other day was this World War II to actually into the 1970s era torpedo, and we're going over the still on patrol. Okay, and we were looking at the number of men, the 374 officers and 331 men. These are all the submarines that were lost, U.S. submarines lost in World War II. This is the names of them, and these are the men and officers. I wanted to make that clear, that this just wasn't the names of submarines that we had, and they were honoring them. These were just the ones that were lost. We had many more than this, but this is an awful, awful lot. Almost all of them in the Pacific, of course, some in the Atlantic as well. Absolutely, some in the Mediterranean. Wherever our submariners went. You notice that many of the names of the submarines are that of fish, both fresh and salt water. Be right back. I myself wanted to also go into a little bit more about these L60 40s. I use the term L60. They had two different barrel lengths. It wasn't until after the war that they decided to use a little bit longer barrel, a little bit hotter cartridge, and see if they could get some better range and penetration for using against lighter armored vehicles. And so they made a longer barrel version called the L70. Now the term 60 and 70 goes by the caliber length of the barrels. This is a 40 millimeter. So you take 40 millimeter times 60, and that will give you the length of these barrels right here. You take 40 millimeter times 70, okay, and that'll give you the length of course, the longer barrel. They're about 10 inches longer. Okay, this is where the trainer, or of course the assistant gunner would sit, would slew the mount left and right. It is electrical, and you can use the manual controls as well, but it is electrical, and then it's tweaked at the very end manually. Here's where the crank would be. He would turn that. His feet would be positioned here statically. Okay, there's nothing to connect to his feet. We'll talk about the firing of the weapon in a second. Okay, just a footrest. Here's his sight. He would keep the mount trained on the target left and right, while here on the other side the gunner have another job. We'll look at that in just a second. This is the charging handle right here. This is how you cock the weapon. Grab a hold of this handle right here and pull it to the rear, shoot, and forward. that locks and loads around into the chamber. And again, the loader on this side has his own charging handle. Okay, here's where the gunner would sit. Has his own set of controls for raising and lowering, elevating and depressing the barrel. So the other man, he'll be slewing the barrel and tracking the target, while the gunner is providing elevation. And once he's on target, he pushes his toes forward. This is the trigger. You can see it hooked up onto the mechanism. If I can stand here, it's a little, okay? Goes all here into the front of the weapon, okay, into the firing mechanism. Okay, when he pushes those toes forward, the guns fire. And depending on how they're being loaded at the time, if the loaders here can load them at the same time and keep them loaded, these cannon barrels will fire at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. If there's a little delay in one of the magazines and the feed, then they'll start operating boom, ba-boom, 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 like that. One than the other. A little bit out of rhythm, if you will, but as long as the rounds are going out. About a 2.5 mile range. About a 2.5 mile range, and the projectiles weigh about 2 pounds. If one projectile hit, say, something like this Huey helicopter right here, it'd knock it out. It'd be all done. Unless it was a real lucky shot and it went right through the floor and out the top, something didn't hit anything. But if it detonated, it'd be all over. So these are very powerful, and they fired millions and millions of these shells during World War II. They came in single barrel in World War II. They're made in Bofors in Sweden. They're a Swedish design. These are made by the Chrysler Corporation in Detroit, Michigan during the war. But they are originally a Swedish Bofors. The Germans used them in World War II. They had access to them through Sweden, but they could get and bought from them before. Then they had their own stuff too. But they came singularly on a mount pulled behind a Jeep or a truck, mounted on all kinds of things, or mounted on a ship. They came in dual mounts like this one, or they came in quad mounts, where you'd have a dual mount like this, and right next to it, another dual mount sitting in the same tub. So you've got 4 of these in action, 4 barrels in action at the same time. That's how they swung. And after World War II, they were used in all kinds of other anti-aircraft modes around the world, and our different allies used them until our Air Force got a hold of them and placed one in the back of a C-130 gunship, just a little forward of the 105 millimeter howitzer. And so they started using these 40s and the ammunition in the spooky gunships. And a lot of these were fired, and you'll see some of those if you look up the C-130H gunships and the 40 millimeter Bofors cannon, and you'll see live footage of them firing these from aircraft at ground targets. So they still are in the inventory. I looked it up last night. There wasn't any plans or anything, I guess you could say, for trashing the weapon system. They still have a lot of them in storage and a lot of ammunition. So there you go. A little bit of history of the twin L60s here. Bofors anti-aircraft, anti-materiel cannons. Be right back. Also, another little closer look at the manufacturer's plate. And I believe down here in the far right-hand corner is the date of 1941, if you can see it there. Just to the left of that screw. Pretty cool. Okay, folks. I knew I'd seen this before when I made a video on this a couple days ago. all I had to do was look one thing up, and it jogged my memory. I had to look up something known as an M50 Ontos. Talk about that in a minute. This is an M56 Scorpion. It is a 90 millimeter. It's an airborne assault gun. Lightweight, made for latter part of Korean War and Vietnam. Be right back. I watched a video of these being fired. And I mentioned in my prior video that probably recoil on this is like maybe 8 inches or something. All right. No, it's more like 3.5, 4 feet. And these babies really rocked. And you should see them, it about knocks the gunner and the drivers right off the carriage. They were so, they had so much recoil, so heavily powered the weapon, as that it was breaking the systems. They're just way too powerful for this track. This is where the ammunition, of course, was stored, and this right here is the loading hand. Pull this to the back, boom, the breech block will drop. You grab a round of ammunition, slide it in, thump, and take the handle, wham, the block is back up and you're ready to fire. Okay, there'd be one man that would be dismounted who would ride right here with his feet down here. Another one here, his feet down here. That's what they showed. And so they had 4 people on board. These 2 men right here would be loading and so forth. Now, when this fires, you better be out of the way, because it not only has a long stroke recoil, but it also expels the spent cartridge. And that baby is pretty heavy. And it is comes flying out of the back of here. And the way I was watching, it would have gone back and hit this hill. Well, if you were standing here, it'd kill you. Just the empty coming out of here. It really flies back out. And so very dangerous to operate around. You have a man loading it, boom, 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 like that, one after the other. And you got to watch out. Things are flying. The gunner, of course, is sit right here. Okay, his gunner's sight or telescope, this is the mount for that. Okay, the only armor on the vehicle is this little faceplate that's a 1/2 inch thick. There's where the gunner's telescope would look out. A very, very little armor. These are made to come in with airborne troops, be parachuted in out of the back of aircraft. 6 big parachutes they showed, and then the troops coming in and manning the vehicle and driving off and taking on the armor with them. Of course, the driver would sit right here. The engine's in the front. Here's the little driver's windshield. Now I'm going to look here at the driver's position down here on the floor. I think you can see the foot pedals down there. Yep, just a little pedal that you step down on. That's the throttle. And of course your brake. Here are your gears on it's like a 3 on the tree. Little shifts right there on the gear lever, other gear lever. And of course lights. This button right here in the center, you see right down here, or right there, that's how you start it. Okay, pretty cool. Well, like I mentioned, I knew I'd seen something like this before. I was looking at the carriage, and I remember seeing an assault gun too, but that wasn't what I had studied. What I'd studied was the M50 Ontos, which came a little after this vehicle did. They used the same carriage, engine, track system, and so forth, but they put a little bit of a domed, semi-protected, armored turret on it, if you will, in which the driver would sit inside, and more like a conventional tank. It would the turret would start about here and go over the top of the vehicle, come down here in the rear. but it sported 6 106 millimeter M40 recoilless rifles. 6 of them, 3 on each side. They look like organ pipes. 2 of them were dismountable, to where the troops could pull up, or the vehicle could pull up, and troops could dismount 2 of those 106s and set them up in any directions they wanted to and fire on the enemy. The Marine Corps used these right here, as well as the Ontos. They're big in the Marine Corps. The Army turned them down. Ontos is Greek for the word thing, T-H-I-N-G. That's what they look like, a thing. Firing 6 tank gun size rounds, recoilless rifle rounds, at the same time, in ripples, single shot, any way the gunner wanted to play it. So just think of the power of 6 full size tank gun rounds coming out at the same time. 3 on this side, 3 on that side. There's quite a bit of video of the Ontos being used in the Battle of Hue in Vietnam by the Marines, and just training videos and so forth, so you can see what they're all about. Now, we had to learn when we got overseas, the M40 Alpha 1, it was just a single tube. I understand it. I know how to lock, load, and fire and aim one of them. We had to learn to have a little 50 caliber spotting rifle attached to the top of the barrels, and you lock and load that, and you aim at the target, and you pull out that firing knob, and it fires that 50 caliber spotting round, and it flies out, and it hits the target. So would your main round. You see that spotter hit that target, you push that firing knob in, boom, and it fires the main, and it goes right in the pocket where the spotter went. And so, yeah, they used those in single barrels, like what we were trained on in Vietnam, so forth. They had quite a few of them at Khe Sanh, I understand. But anyways, this toted 6 of them. Something else. The M50 Ontos. Yep. That's what this morphed into. They did, again, our government, they put these on the shelf. They're just too much recoil and too high maintenance. And you get into places that, like jungle conditions in Vietnam and everything, and you need kind of lightweight. This does have nice wide tracks though. I didn't read how they operated in Nam, or if they even got them down into the thick stuff there. But anyways, that's what this is right here. This is the good old M56 Scorpion. All right, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Have a great and sunny day.